Welcome to the Divine Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Cristina Roche, and together we are walking the path of discovering your true self and the alignment with your soul. Through these conversations, you will experience a deeper level of connection with yourself and the universe, and most importantly, you will trust in your spiritual journey ahead. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Divine Connection Podcast. I am so thrilled today because we have a special guest who is joining us. Welcome, Nina Katherine, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And for those of you who do not know who Nina Katherine is, you're about to know because also, FYI, in case you guys didn't know, the Archangel Oracle card deck is out. And if you see the box, artwork by Nina Katherine. So yes, we have the artist here with us today. And I'm so excited to have a whole conversation with Nina about the creation of the Archangel Oracle card deck and specifically going into the art and just all of the things. This is going to be such a beautiful conversation. Nina, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay, I'm so excited for the invitation. Thank you so much, Cristina. It's been such a blessing. We've just said it before we started recording. This has been so divinely guided from start to now. And I'm just really, really stoked to be here. Thank you.
Yay, absolutely. Me too. And I'm so glad that this worked out, like our time zones. You know, Nina and I are 9 hours apart. So I'm just starting my day. She's ending her day. And we were able to make it happen, come together here and have this conversation. I am so, like, I can't even tell you how happy I am that we get to do this, how blessed I feel that we got to work on this incredible project together. And I'm going to show right now to everyone just to give people a sneak peek. If you're watching me on YouTube, I know that there are some people who are listening to this on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. If you get a chance, go on YouTube because I'm about to show people who are watching on YouTube the artwork in the deck. I'm just going to give people a sneak peek of the beautiful, incredible art that Nina created. Look at this. This is so, oh my gosh, amazing. And we'll describe some things to you guys who are just listening in so you guys don't feel left out. But before we get into the actual art and the process and just how we brought this project to life, I want to just share a quick story of how Nina and I met, because I feel like it's such a beautiful example of how the universe has a plan and how there's this divine plan that happens before you even know. And Nina and I have known each other, I think, since 2017, right? Something along that line, 2017 or 2018, whatever. We met in person in London in 2018. And so we met through the online world, just simply through the spiritual world and spirituality and just that whole thing. And so we've been connected online since that time. And it wasn't until a few years later that you started to bring your art, to the online world. And I saw it because we were always connected. We met, we were whatever, we knew each other. And we were just always, for me, I always just kind of saw you were doing something. And I always just kind of followed you and that sort of a thing. And it's so funny because in the context within which we met, had nothing to do with art, and it had nothing to do with oracle cards, and it had nothing to do with doing this work. And yet I look back and I'm like, whoa, the universe planted this all the way back then so that we could come together, during this time and be like, this is what we're here to do together, which is so cool and so fun to just see that unfold now in hindsight. I think it's such a beautiful way to just see how there's always a greater divine plan unfolding for us. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we met, you were doing other stuff, and I think when I talked to you, when did we talk? Did we talk in 2022 probably, right? We started talking about the project. And I remember you said something along the lines of, when we had our conversation, that, art was something that you were into before, and then you kind of stopped doing art for, I don't know, I want to say like 20 years or something like that. Am I in the right vicinity of like how long you stopped and then you got back into it? So I want to hear a little bit about what got you back into the art, or like how did that happen, because I feel like even that part of your journey is just such a beautiful part of the whole story of how this all came together, because this wouldn't have happened if I didn't even know that you did art when I met you and that you were an artist, you know. So I would love to hear more from your perspective of, you know, what, how did that journey happen that you got back into the artwork?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've always been an artist at heart, I think. And I guess all of us are in some way, shape, or form because we all creators, aren't we? But I really love to just scribble, to draw, to paint, to do handicrafts, all sorts of things when I was a child. And I guess that got lost as, you know, you kind of like move forward in life, you grow up, and then in our day and age, and I think this is changing now, but still in the day, it was a little bit like arts and crafts and these things that were not really very supported. And like my schools that I went to, there was not really support in there. And I distinctly actually have a memory of me being in primary school and learning that we would only have 1 year of like creative stuff and like handicrafts and these kind of things, and then it would stop and it would all just be like math and German and English and, you know, all of the things. And I remember how sad I was back then. And it was almost like a little bit like this creativity got a little bit like ripped out of my heart a little bit, you know, sensitive as we are as children. And yeah, and then you just move forward in life and you try to make everything work, you try to adapt. And I lost my creativity a little bit, or I buried it because I thought it was not valued, it was not understood, and it was not really necessary or desired in that world where, you know, it's just about marks and career and all of these things. So I stopped, and then I had a period when I was around like late teenage, early adult years, like around maybe 17, 18, 19, 20, when I got back into painting and I started oil painting. I started painting with acrylics, with pastel, with everything. And I loved it. And then again, I had this one moment where I thought, oh, okay, maybe I can make that work in a bigger way. And then I felt that got crushed again. And then I buried it. I
Mm.
completely buried my creativity and embarked on all other path, and, you know, went to university and did all of that stuff. And then I found health and well-being, and then I found spirituality. And that really got me back to who I truly was in a way. But it did take some time, you know. It was not like an overnight thing. And so you and I met. Actually, you were the first person I did a spiritual workshop with, online, and
Oh
I
my
still,
gosh, that's amazing.
yeah, and I still remember the things that you channeled for me, and it was just an really amazing experience. And I guess really that's where that beautiful connection started in a way, didn't it? And yeah, and then we followed each other's path, and at some point, there was, yeah, my dad passed away, and that was obviously
Mm.
a very hard time. And a few days after the funeral and everything had settled down a little bit, I got this intense pull to do sacred geometry, to draw sacred geometry out of nowhere. I know
Whoa.
with hindsight, I know my dad had to do with that. It was such a powerful message from his side. And it
I'm
was just
getting
like a
chills, by the way. As you're saying that, I'm getting chills. So this is amazing.
and it was, you know, at that point, it wasn't anything like, it was just like scribbling and, you know, drawing a little bit of sacred geometry. And then I ordered a few like metallic pens to make it a little bit more beautiful. But again, I was very caught up in the whole kind of like career thing, and, you know, um, just, yeah, making things work in the world of reality, in the 3D world. And I was very entangled in that. And so after a few weeks of like doing sacred geometry, then I forgot a little bit about that again. And then again, like 1.5 years later, it was quite a tough time. I think it was around the beginning of 2020 when everyone was a little bit in a wobbly space anyways.
Yes.
And a lot of things at that point had really either not quite worked out or kind of like mm, fizzled out a little bit. Everything else that I was doing, there was not really a big energy behind it. And I was feeling that there was something new coming, something big for a while, but I had no idea what that was. And it felt very weird because I had to learn to live in uncertainty quite a lot. Honestly, I had no idea what it was going to be. And yeah, and all of a sudden I felt that urge again to reconnect with my painting materials and to start painting sacred geometry again. And this is really when then it started like in a more serious way. And then again, like I just like started to scribble, and then like there was quite a lot of steps forward, and then all of a sudden I got more into like fine arts and like really premium materials. And then I really allowed myself the time and the pleasure and the joy to be very playful with it. And instead of needing a specific outcome or needing to make a business out of it or needing to achieve something with it, like in the those patterns that I had kind of like did done before things I didn't kind
Yes.
of like, I allowed myself just to have it as a playground, basically, in which I could express myself fully and wholly without being judged by any kind of success. And so, yeah, I started this whole thing, and it was so fulfilling. And I started to share it on Facebook. I started to share it on Instagram, and people started to like it and just followed the journey along a little bit. And yeah, I played with all kinds of materials, like all kinds of media, from watercolors to pastel. I started doing my own paints, buying pigments, making my own paints at home. It was just such a beautiful process. And then I got into the whole gold thing, which is a little bit of, gold is always a little bit of my signature thing. And yeah, and then it went into realism, but also into spiritual art. And all of a sudden, I received an amazing message from you. I think it was in
I
2022. I think it was in June, wasn't it?
think so.
And
Something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then this
Yeah.
whole ball started rolling in terms of the Oracle card deck. Yeah.
So amazing. I still remember the day because, like you said, you started posting online on Facebook and we'd always been following each other. And I remember, like, I feel like I specifically saw you posting something like angel wing related. You probably were
Mm.
creating angel related things also back then when you got into it,
Mhm.
because it was somewhere between 2020 and 2022. Because I remember it was still a period of time before I reached out to you. But I remember I saw your art online, and it was a moment of just this clear knowing. I was like, Nina Katherine is going to do the art for my Oracle card deck. I don't know when, I don't know what, I don't know the details, but I just knew in that moment. And it was just like, oh, like so good. And so when in 2022, when I finally kind of felt that nudge of like, okay, it's time to do this, I remember I was writing a message to Nina. We were talking on Facebook Messenger, and I remember writing to her and just being like, please, Nina, please, Nina, please say yes, please say yes, please say yes to this project. Like, I had no idea if you were going to say yes, if you're going to say, nah, I'm not interested, or whatever. And I remember just being like, oh my God, please, angels, have her say yes to this project. And yeah, like, okay, so tell us, what was your initial reaction like when you saw my message being something along the lines of, I forget what I said to you exactly, but probably something like, hey, I've seen you doing your artwork, it's so beautiful, this is the project that I have going on, I would really love to have you be the artist. If this feels aligned, let me know. Like something along those lines, I think, is what I said. So what was your initial reaction when you saw my message?
I was really like heart struck in a really, really positive way. I felt this really powerful, beautiful energy come in right away. This conviction that this is, this is the right step forward. This is like, I didn't even think to say no. It was, of course, yes. Like there was not even any kind of thought about it. Like, am I going to do it? Am I not?
Yeah.
It's like, no, yes, I'm going to do it, of course. It
That's
just came,
amazing.
yeah. When something comes in and it feels so aligned, and then you just know that it's going to work out. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. And the fact that you were also drawn, you had your own journey with sacred geometry and being drawn to it and that sort of thing. And it's so interesting because throughout my journey as a spiritual teacher and a mentor and things like that, sacred geometry has been also a theme that comes up. And so we didn't even really talk, like it was just mainly like I want to create an angel card deck. Angels is the main theme. And it somehow also came together that was like, yeah, of course, sacred geometry is going to be a part of it, which so many people, by the way, I received so many messages from people who are like, oh my gosh, the sacred geometry, I can feel the energy of this, of what's, the energy that's there. And so I want to show people again, those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm showing you again the beautiful artwork, just sharing some examples of the cards. Like there's some sacred geometry. For those of you who are listening in, I don't even know how to describe this. You're going to have to go watch it on YouTube. This is actually one of my favorite cards. I'm showing the Creative Connection number 35. This is literally one of my most favorite cards ever. And so the deck has these sacred geometry based cards, which are the message cards. And then we also have like pure angel cards, which represent the angels. And there's 16 different angels that are featured in the card deck. Let me find another one. That was Archangel Ariel. Ooh, Archangel Metatron. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm like, where do we even start with talking about this? So I came to Nina with this project. I was like, hey, listen, I want to create an angel card deck. Are you interested in being the artist? She said yes. We were like, yes, okay, sounds good. And I was like, okay, how do we start this? I want to kind of share the process with people, and also hear your perspective as the artist, how that they came to be. And I remember I sent Nina, I was like, okay, these are the 16 angels that are going to be featured in this deck. So let's just start with the angels. And so that's where she started with the angel wing artwork. So again, Archangel Ariel. Hold on, let me feature a different one. Who else wants to come through? Oh, Angel Celeste is another one. So as you guys can see, like look at this beautiful, like the detail on the wings. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So tell us a little bit about the process. So the guidance that I gave Nina is I basically said, this is the angel. This is the colors that I see associated with the angel. And I think maybe I said a little bit about like, what kind of vibe they bring in, like for example, Archangel Michael, protection, support, our Angel Celeste, life purpose, path. She's associated with light blue. That's kind of what I gave to Nina. And then she took that and ran with it in an amazing way. So I want to hear a little bit about how does it work for you, or how did this come to life for you? Like, when you read my description, do you start to get a vision of it and then you do it, or do you start to like you start to put your paintbrush on the canvas and it starts to come to life? Like, how does it walk us through a little bit how it comes to life for you as the artist? I'm so interested to hear.
Okay. So, well, to start with, probably would be good to say I had never done anything like this at all. Anything kind of like, and in terms of the scope of the project, because literally I was I was painting, or we were planning to paint 45 paintings, like
Yeah.
full size
43.
paintings,
Yeah. Yep.
43, 43, that would then be turned into cards. And so I think from the start, for me as an artist, it was really amazing because having connected with spirituality and with channeling and with like working with the angels and these dimensional energies, celestial energies before, I had learn to gain a little bit more confidence in myself in with these things. And then obviously the art process came in, and then that's a new kind of like learning curve in terms of confidence and whatnot. But
Yeah.
because that powerful energy was there right from the beginning, I knew it would work out. And normally I tend to doubt myself a little bit. Like I'm one of those people, like probably like human design, like not an open will center. You know, there's always a little bit of like a
Yes.
grain of doubt. With this, it was a little bit different. I had a very, very positive feeling around this. And so I was just running with it. I knew that I had built, like in those 2 years where I had started to paint, like I had this hiatus of like 20 years where I didn't do any artwork whatsoever. But then I caught up in those 2 years, and where I had allowed myself to really play and explore. And that time
Yeah.
really, really aided me and supported me then in the creation of this big, huge, massive project that I had never done
Yes.
before. And I was not, I mean, yeah, I knew what we were getting into, but at the same time I had no freaking clue. And I
Right? Same.
could
Same.
yeah. Like we had no clue what we signed up for. But I could only just guesstimate everything based on what I had done before, which none of that had been anywhere near what we did. Obviously I had painted angels quite a lot, but it was, this was very different. And what I did in terms of process, obviously you gave me those guidelines, and I think it was really great because it was a nice base. It was enough information for me to get the vibe and to get kind of like that channeling and that flow going. And then, like, even just when I looked at the notes from you, I had already kind of like visions come in, and then I would make like notes for myself, or would like kind of like mental notes. And, when I had these visual impulses that then come through, this is kind of like how I usually describe it. And I was giving myself really a lot of kind of like separation from the outside world. I put myself a little bit in a bubble and into a creative bubble during that time.
Mm.
I think the entire project probably was like 3.5 months. And
Yeah, something
I
like
think the
that.
10
Yeah.
days I was in Sweden in between, that was kind of like half time. And then I finished everything afterwards. So it was like 3 months of full time angel cards. And I think that was
So
really,
amazing. Like, wow. Wow. Like, so much. It's just, yeah, keep going. I love this so much.
yeah, it was really, I put myself into that creative archangel bubble basically. And I would not work on anything else. I would only work on that. I did not, like, I put all of my other projects aside. I didn't take on any commissions. I was very rarely on social media. I was really kind of like just focused on the cards and on nature. And I think that really is kind of like my formula for how I work best as an artist, to be really deeply in union with nature, and to then have all of these things channel through me as I'm painting, or also like as I'm just like being outside in nature and just thinking about whatever, and all of a sudden like an impulse comes in for this card or for that card. And this is kind of like how it built. And there was structure, but there was also flow. So I can't say, oh, I was just lying in the meadow for like 3 months.
Yeah.
That's not true. Like it was a really like an intense work of, how do you say, an intense labor of love. You say in English, I think.
Mm.
And there was
Yes.
a lot of time going into that, but it was just, it was not forced, or it was not like, oh God, I have to produce the, like it like always the next step came, the next step came, the next step came. And basically this is how they came to be. And I do have a little bit of a framework around like how I start the paintings, how I set the intention, how the energy channels through. And even when I
Hmm.
worked, especially with the card deck, I learned a lot of that, because obviously not having done anything of that magnitude before, um, I had just to kind of like give myself and surrender myself to that process. And just thinking back, it's just so, honestly, it's so beautiful. I will always remember that time. And yeah, so it was basically just me and the materials. I had like an entire workspace built up in my home studio where it was always
Amazing.
just about the angels, and there were gold flakes everywhere. um,
Yes, I love that so much. And I would love for you because, okay, again, I'm going to show this. Those of you listening to the podcast, go see this on YouTube. I'm going to show, like that is the goal that she's talking about, the detail here. Do you see, like, you can see so clearly how there's the texture of the gold that is created. I'll show another example. Angel Celeste. And another example here, like, and so you use the gold really, as a big part of the sacred geometry aspect. It's not just that, but I would love to hear more about that, like how that how do you use the gold? Like, do you add the gold in at the end, or do you start with the gold and then you paint around it? Like, how does that work?
The gold usually comes more towards the end, especially when I work with
Mm.
watercolor, because this entire set is built on watercolor and pigments that I then guess a lot of the colors I actually made myself. So I would then mix the pigments with gum arabic and then create my own watercolors from that. And obviously you can't, with watercolor you can't really paint over a lot of different like materials very well, so you kind of like have to put the
Right.
gold at the end because otherwise it doesn't quite work. And so usually I would kind of like start with for example, the angel wings, and kind of like work on that and work out the details, and then an idea or an impulse would come in about how the geometry, the subtle or the sacred geometries, are supposed to look like. And I wish, I don't know, I wish I could, take credit for that. But I guess a lot of the time it is really being open to the impulses that, are supposed to come through. And sometimes again, it came just looking at the notes, and sometimes it just came as I was building the wings and, painting the little details and the feathers.
Mm.
And so there would always be this void, and then the energy coming in, and then the colors, obviously.
Yeah.
And then this is how it's built up, and there are so many layers and stages in between. So yeah, the gold is always at the end, and I'm using a lot
Mm.
of different types of gold for that. And
Mhm.
also some impastos material, where I then kind of like create like a surface or a texture and then put the gold on top. And so there was always like a million of materials flying around.
It
And
literally blows my mind to think about the intricate details. I want to show this card again. Like, look at that feather. That was all created with gold, right? That feather right there. That's all, like, can you even imagine? Like, for anyone listening, like the amount of, like you said, such a labor of love. Like, look how beautiful that is. And I just want to keep showing, and even with the wings, that part is your like with the paint and stuff like that, but just like the detailing of the wings and how you brought it together with the gold material, it absolutely just blows my mind. Like, I don't even know how else to describe it except that it blows my mind. It's amazing.
thank you
Absolutely
so much.
incredible.
Thank you so much. And I can only return the compliment because you did such an incredible job in the post processing thing. Because, painting this whole endeavor was one big chunk of work, but then doing everything else, like I've said before, I don't even know all of the crazy details that go into creating a card deck. I know just like a little bit, but obviously I've never done it myself. But it came out in such a beautiful way. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for, being so thoughtful about these details, like with the gold. Like other people maybe could have like looked past that, or
Right.
like
Yeah.
little glitters that are in the actual pigments in the background as well, that like reflect gold or silver or iridescence.
Mm.
But even
Mm-hmm.
those, I think, out a little bit. And I don't have my card deck yet, so I
I
can't, like, I
know.
can only judge from everything that I've seen on screen so far and on Instagram. But yeah, so thank you for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can really see so much just based off of what you said, how much of a process it is just with even like the trust of the flow. Like you said, you mentioned something, along the lines of, sometimes there's this void and then it comes in and then you kind of follow the guidance or follow what comes through. And it just creates this such, I just keep showing the cards so people can see how beautiful it is. And I just love how the colors come together and everything. So I would love to hear about, just the process. Obviously, there's kind of two different, I'll just show two side by side. There's, the angels and the wings that represent the actual angels. And then there's the more sacred geometry base that are the message cards. Was there a difference that you felt between just like doing the angels? Because obviously, this is a different process. You're specifically drawing, like, painting wings and the details within the feathers of the wings and all that versus more sacred geometry based stuff. So did you find, like, was one a little bit more challenging than the other? Like, how did you find, or was there a difference in terms of your workflow or how it came through for you doing the two different types of cards?
So yeah, very interesting question. It's so nice because I now get to reflect back, like with hindsight as well. It's so good.
Yes.
Um, I think the biggest difference, I think energetically, energetically, the process is quite similar, and the energetic steps of me creating it is kind of like relatively similar. Obviously, the actual execution is a little bit different, but what I felt for the sacred geometry part is that with the angel wings, it's obviously the full blown energy of the angel stepping forward and really that getting embedded. And that's what I really focused on when I was
Mm.
creating those cards. And they would actually take quite a bit longer. So most of them actually, also because of the level of details of the wings and the feathers. Obviously, there's like more fine details in the feathers in general, so that they would take about like probably 2.5 days, one, like just one angel to be created into or brought into that painting. And the
Mhm.
other cards were process wise usually a little bit faster. They would just take like maybe one work day or like 1.5 or something like that.
Mm.
So the angels were a little bit more intense, but of course also so much fun because you get to directly connect with that angel. And that was a real pleasure for me as well, because of course I had worked with the archangels before, but never in this detail and never with all of them in that measure. So it was really, really such a beautiful opportunity to connect more deeply with them as well, and with those that I had known not so much beforehand. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
so
then
cool.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. That was so good. And then for the geometry cards, or like the message cards, obviously then it was a deeper connection with the message and the intention. It was like the intentions and the intentionality that I created before I started each painting was obviously like similar. But then for the message card, I would really dive deep into the energy of the message and really feel that energy. Um,
Mm.
and also kind of like me envisaging how that embodiment would feel like, and then from that feeling impulse then transferring that into whatever I would then put that into these subtle geometric shapes or sacred geometry, or these kind of like
Right.
expressions in that way. And I don't think I've ever done that before in that specific way. It just like it came about just by trusting, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because I'm not exactly sure whether we decided to have those cards in that specific way or whether that came about. And like I said, sometimes it's even like just getting out of the way and not even being able to take too much credit for it, because yeah, it's just that beautiful guided process in a way too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, now that you said that, I remember. So, no, we didn't actually specifically talk. And this is what I love so much about the divine and how it works through us, and how, to me, this whole project is so much bigger than just you and I being like, hey, let's make an oracle card deck. It's the divine working through us. And we are simply in two different ways bringing through the expression. Nina, obviously, through through the visual artwork, and myself through the messaging and the written word, and all the things there. So we never actually directly had a conversation like this. I never went to Nina and was like, I want the message cards to be sacred geometry based. That was never a conversation that we had. Even, I even think back, and I'm pretty sure that even with the angel, the specific angel cards, we didn't actually establish. I wasn't like, Nina, I want you to do these wings like this, and this is how it's going to be. It came through for her. She shared a picture with me. She's like, hey, like, this is something what's coming through. I think Archangel Michael might have been the first card that you had worked on potentially. I don't remember exactly,
Yeah.
but I think. And I was like, Nina, that's genius. Yes, that is how they're supposed to look. So I didn't even know until she shared with me. And then I was like, that's how we're going to do the angel cards. They're going to be the wings in that way. They're going to have their different colors that represent them. And so and then with the message cards, it also wasn't like it has to be sacred geometry. It was just that's how it came through for her. She shared with me to get feedback, and I was like, yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. And so this is the beauty, I feel like, of, like we keep saying, trusting in how the divine flows through us, and then also trusting in how we are both led, because, we go into it with a certain idea, but then the divine is like, hang on a second, there's a better idea here. There's a better process. Let me just show you. And we're like, okay, like we follow the lead, and it's almost like on a different level of us being, the artist brush, and the divine is painting with us, and it's like these micro levels of that, I feel, you know, which is just so beautiful. And so I wanted to ask you as well, your Instagram handle is energy activation art, right? Or energy dot like energy period activation art. So and I know
Mhm.
that you talk a lot about, energy activation in your art. So I would love for you to explain a little bit in terms of how you perceive that, or how you explain that to people. If people are like, what does that mean, energy activation art? Like, how would you explain that to someone? And I know, like, I'll just say, with sacred geometry, and the feedback that I've gotten from people, like, almost pretty much every single person has reached out to me and is like, I can feel the energy of the cards. I can feel the divine. I can feel the love. I can feel the angels. Like, and what you said also, by the way, when you were describing, feeling with the message cards, like feeling the embodiment of it and the message, I wanted to cry, like, as you were saying that, because I was like, that is like the most beautiful thing that I could ever hear and experience when it comes to the creation of something so sacred and so beautiful like these cards. And it shows because people are feeling it. I feel it, people are feeling it. And so I would love to hear from your perspective, what do you feel is the meaning of energy activation through art, and how can people experience that with, a deck like this, for example?
Yeah, beautiful question. I love that. I think it really starts with first the intentionality behind it, and then also really letting that impulse flow through and that energy package. I always feel it like as an energy package that arrives and then that wants to be expressed. And you express it through this beautiful writing that you do and these powerful messages and words. And then my intentionality behind my part of the job was to support that visually and have that energy visually flow into those cards. And when I say energy activated, then that's literally what it is. It's receiving that energy package and letting it flow into the artwork. Um, and I think I can talk a lot about it, but at the same time, I think, and what I'm now actually getting reflected back from the outside world is that a lot of the time, even though I do have mechanics and rituals, or like ways in which I channel that through the hands, I think in a way, and I'm sure that works the same for a lot of other artists too, or writers, or whatever you're creating. And I think it also comes automatically and naturally in a way. um, so normally, like I said, there are mechanics behind it when you work with energy. That when, for example, when we work with Reiki and we channel it through the hands, and everyone has a kind of like a different way of doing it, but there is a certain, like I said, intentionality or energy impulse that you want to channel through and into that artwork. And I can share a little bit of of those processes. And for example, when I started painting, and it depends on what I paint with watercolor, it's a little bit more tricky. But when I, for example, work with oils or acrylics, then I usually start by putting a symbol or a word, or anything that is deeply meaningful for me, in that, like in relation with that painting. I put it down on the canvas in whichever way, shape, or form that comes to me. And I never really do it the same every single time. And I always like, I start, and then it kind of like develops a life on its own in a way. And then I just follow
Yeah.
through with it. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like what it is for me to energetically activate it. And like I said, like I could probably talk hours about the different steps and the mechanics behind it. um, but just recently, for example, I have received feedback from someone that I didn't even know, where I had displayed artwork that was completely unrelated to angels. It was like florals and realism. And someone stepped forward and said, "Oh, this is totally angelic energy that you're channeling there." And it was shared on a platform that wasn't even anything to do with spirituality or with art. It was just like a platform to display your stuff. And it was really interesting that an energy healer stepped forward and reflected that back to me. And even though I do set kind of like intentions when I start paintings, with some of the other artwork that I do, I had not like kind of like done all of these rituals around it so much, and these mechanics around that so much, and I wasn't labeling it as energy activated art. But then that person steps forward and says that, and I think that's with a lot of artists that way. And I guess it's not just like visual artists, it's writers, it's everyone who creates, and that just happens naturally at some point, I think.
Yes. I love that you shared that and brought it forward in that way, because it's so so true. And I feel like that's what happens when we truly open ourselves up and allow ourselves to be vessels of creation in whatever shape or form that comes through, like in your case through the visual artwork, in my case through the writing, or whatever way that we are individually led to bring through whatever expression, whatever creation. I feel, and I totally get what you're saying, because I feel like that has happened to me as well through the writing, where maybe it was before I even had like so much intention behind my words or what I was saying. People would tell me, I feel this deeper level of experience with the divine through your words. And so it's such a beautiful reflection to also see it, how it can come through in so many different ways. I believe that music is another way that it can come through, art, words, speaking, like so many different formats and mediums through which we can bring through expression. And that I feel that the divine, uses us to be forms of expression. And it's needed to be in all these different unique ways, because people connect with it in different unique ways. And so to be able to combine the beautiful art, the visual aspect, the visual component with the sacred geometry, with the, encoded energy here, plus the words, I feel like this Oracle card deck just brings so many different qualities and like ways of doing it together in one way, in a specific product. And I can't get over, this is the back of the cards, by the way. I'm showing again on YouTube for those of you who are listening. I keep showing the cards because they're so beautiful. And I think that even just seeing it right now, if you don't have a card deck yet, you can definitely order it. We have the links for you in the show notes below. But I really feel like it's it's something that also gets to continue to, it's almost like you described it a bit, like a package of energy that we can then utilize, and it supports us and it expands through us and it guides us in whatever way it's needed. You know what I mean? And it's just such a I have no words to describe just how incredible it is to be able to now show this to people and showcase to others that like this work, and to be able to hear from your perspective how it all came together, because I didn't know like 75% of this of what you just shared. And it's so good for me too to just really, I feel like I just walked really deep with you in your process. You know what I mean? I just felt like I was a fly on the wall, and you kind of shared a little bit about this is how this came to life. And I'm like, this is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Oh my gosh. I love all of these cards. All of these cards are so beautiful. Oh my gosh. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that you physically created this art, like you like through it came through your hands, versus digital or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with digital artwork or those kinds of ways, but I feel like there's something deeply that we can connect on a human level. After all, we're all humans. So I feel like there is this, human level of connection that occurs when there's a physical channel through which this came through. What's your perspective on, artwork coming through in this form versus other formats? And again, it's not from a space of like, this is better than other, but just what's your experience with this kind of art?
Yeah, I totally agree. So for me, I am highly energetically sensitive. I really do feel the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I think a lot of us are. And and I have to be very careful. Like even visually, I'm very, very, very sensitive. And what I've noticed, so that's just like me. That's just sharing my perspective. I have to be very careful nowadays scrolling through Instagram because my body, my energy feels and reacts to a lot of things that are not necessarily naturally crafted or handmade, or like I can feel the energies from more like the digital realm, and also now the
Mm.
more artificially created imagery that's out there. And it was an intense learning process for me, because when this whole phenomena of not man-made art or imagery or whatever it is, it's everything now obviously, but there was a point where it started with images, and I would scroll through Facebook, and there were these really beautiful, absolutely beautifully stunning visual images, but my body contracted and my energy contracted, and it would feel really intense to me, and I would have to clear my energy afterwards. And I didn't know why that was in the beginning, until I then realized where then people started then to share, oh yeah, this is created not digitally, not manually. It's actually created via like a software program, or like kind of like artificial.
Mm.
And so that's kind of like how it feels to me. And again, there's nothing bad about it. That it just means maybe I'm a little bit sensitive, but I think there is to be something to be said for when you sit down and, like you said, you use your own hands, and that the hands, they have chakras as well, and the energy
Yeah.
channels through them. And when you create something with your hand, whether that's a painting, whether that is just something, handicraft stuff, or you crochet or you knit something, there's a certain energy in there. And like, even just think about the time that it takes to maybe knit a sweater or knit a scarf or paint a nice painting, and compared to digitally, you can just throw things together and defragment stuff and then put them newly together, just like in the blink of an eye now. Again, there's nothing bad about it, but like, time wise and economically, I totally get the point why that is easier and why most people rely for their image supply and, art supply in this kind of way. I totally understand it. It's, it's more affordable, it's quicker, but the time that it takes to produce an artwork, and you actually sitting down, you having your thoughts channel into that, your energy channel into that, it is a whole different energy. It is really a whole different
Yeah.
energy. And yeah, it was a process of, like I said, 3 months for those 42, 43, 42
Mm,
paintings.
mm.
um, and I guess it's just a different approach to, had we just done it on Canva and done a collage on Canva or something like that within a few weeks maybe. So yeah, and I
Yeah,
also
yeah. And yeah, go ahead.
sorry about that. I just wanted to congratulate you as well for having the courage, really, and the willingness to invest in something that is handmade, and not just like digitally made, which would have been way faster probably, in your process as
Yeah.
well and in your post processing. But actually sitting down saying, no, I want something that is where so much energy has flown in, because I guess it's rare these days that, for a card deck, these handcrafted paintings are used. And so I just want to say thank you for, yeah, having the trust and, the commitment to do that. I think it's just amazing, the work that has gone into the cards from you, and from the channeling and the level of details, the boxes, the book as well, like the booklet. I don't have the cards yet because they're stuck somewhere halfway around the world somewhere. But I watched the little beautiful, well, actually, it was not little, it was the beautiful workshop that you did last week, and you give people so many different ways to work with a card deck, so many different approaches. It's almost like you have your little life guidance coach, wisdom coach in the back pocket, because you have these, these different ways to work with them and different tools for each section of your life. And I'm really excited to go into that depth as well. So yeah, there's so many things that I really, really, love and appreciate about the way that you set this up. And yeah, again, thank you so much for investing in like handmade art by a human being. I think it's phenomenal. And so yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. And it's interesting because there was never a question in my mind. Like I said, when I saw your art, I was like, she's the one. I don't like, she's doing it. I knew it was you and I knew that it was going to be this way. And now thinking back again, it's like in hindsight, there's so much clarity or awareness that comes through in hindsight looking back. And also through this conversation, listening to your process, it all makes so much more, even more sense. Not that it didn't make sense before, but now it makes even more sense why it was guided to be this way. And it's because of the deep intentionality behind, how you show up as the artist, how I show up as the, author and the writing and all that, and how you cannot replicate that. You can't replicate, that soul driven creation process, no matter how intelligent the computer is, no matter all the algorithms or whatever you want to put in it to put through art, it's just not the same as the intentionality behind a human who is channeling it and bringing it through. And so I really, really I just love how it all came together because I didn't know the depth of detail that would go into the guidebook, or even, that I was going to write about this or this part or whatever. It just kind of similar to how you shared about your process with the art coming together. it was the same thing for me with the guidebook and with just like other pieces of this whole project and the oracle cards. It just kind of all came together and fell into place the way that it was meant to. And, I've been joking with people. I'm like, this is my third child that I birthed into the world. And it took the longest out of all of my other two kids, like way faster than this one. This was the longest child to come into the world. But it was so, I couldn't have thought of like the most perfect divine timing. Even though there was moments for me on my end, I was like, like this is delayed. I thought it was going to be way sooner. I honestly thought I was going to be releasing this card deck 1 year prior, like literally a year before. I thought I was going to release it before my second daughter was born. And then that wasn't the plan. The divine was like, no, we're not doing it that way. You're not rushing this process, so it came through the way that it was supposed to. And at the end of the day, I'm as I hold this deck, and hopefully Nina, you're going to be holding it soon too. But as I hold this and as I, feel the energy of the cards and everything and how it came through, I'm like, this was worth the wait. This was so worth the time and the energy and the intentionality that it took to bring it to life in this way. Even if there were moments when my ego was like, why haven't you done it yet? It needs to happen faster and whatever. All those things that our ego likes to say sometimes, So I love this so much. And thank you again, Nina, for coming on here today and for sharing more about your process and things like that. I want to, as we close off, I want you to just share a little bit in terms of, you do more than just like angelic and sacred geometry. You mentioned a little bit realism. I know that I've seen you do, maybe that's what's categorized under realism, but I know that I've seen you do like animals, right? Like I've seen like very, very intricate details. If you want to just describe a little bit for people who want to learn more about you and the type of art that you create and how people can find more about you, or if they want their own commissioned art, like how can people find you? What do you do aside from creating amazing oracle card deck art now? Add that to your resume. How can people find you?
Oh, thank you so much, Christina. Yeah, so I do all sorts of paintings. At the moment, I am or actually have started my first Mystic Alchemy line. That's also the name of my website. So I kind of like bring in the spirit animals and just kind of like the spiritual forces of Gaia, the essences of Gaia, which to me, spirit animals, flowers, plants are really strong kind of like representatives for those forces of Gaia and really her essence. And then I bring in the cosmic influences as well, and the cosmic energy, along with the gold and the sacred geometry, or just like subtle geometries. So I've just finished, or I'm just in the process of finishing my first two paintings from that series that are behind me. I'm just kind of like adding little details. Sometimes I usually let my paintings rest for a few weeks, and then, you continuously look at them, and then you just see like a little more kind of like details pop out that you could add, or something like that. So that's what I'm working on the moment. And then I have a whole series of these kind of like mystic alchemy paintings, that of course are energy infused, have the sacred geometry, but also like our cosmic allies and spirit animals, plant allies included. And that's going to be kind of like being added to as I'm painting. So it's kind of like just like a growing collection. So that's kind of like one side of my work. And and then I also do human design art, and I kind of like create.
That sounds amazing.
It's not something that I often speak about. I have a few posts on that on my Instagram, but I am currently kind of like overhauling this whole kind of like approach where I create a piece of unique art based on the person's individual body graph human design chart structure. And they are very customable in terms of what people really connect with in terms of colors, or like animals that can be included, spirit animals or flowers or anything that they really love. I have mine. I have one sample one that's, I've done with sacred geometry. So that is something that I will be working on as well over the course of this year. Yeah, and other than that, I do commissions. I have a handful of commission slots that I open up regularly throughout the year. So if anyone wants to have their own kind of like custom soul painting energy infused, then they can always kind of like approach me on social media. But everything kind of like flows together on my new website, which is mysticalchemy.art. And
So
yeah, my
perfect.
Instagram is thank you. My Instagram is energy dot activation art. And I'm also on Facebook, Nina Katherine. So yeah, those are kind of like the
Perfect.
projects, and there's more and more coming in. And at the moment, I'm like, oh my god, I need more time to paint all of this because I
Yeah.
have so many amazing things coming, and like visions and all of that. So there will be a lot in the Mystic Alchemy kind of like collection, hopefully this year.
Wow, that is so incredible. I'm so excited to hear about these different I really love how you bring together these different concepts but that are all connected in a way, you know. When you said the human design thing, I was like, that sounds amazing. I want my my personal one made. That sounds so cool. And by the way, for everyone who's listening in, all the links that Nina mentioned are going to be below in the show notes. So go check out, we're going to have her website, her Instagram link, all the places where you can find her, connect with her. If you follow me on Instagram, then I often tag Nina in the different things. So you will see her being tagged, especially as we share about the Oracle card deck and all of those things. But definitely, at the very least, give Nina a follow on Instagram, and also go check out her website and all the things that she has available there. And it sounds like there's so much that's being developed behind the scenes as well. So to be able to just be in connection with you and, to just see the things that come through, I cannot wait. I can't wait to see all of this coming through. And thank you again for sharing about that and sharing, all the links and things like that. And the last thing is, of course, if you have not ordered your card deck yet, you can do so. I'm going to have the link for the Archangel Oracle card deck below as well. So you can order your very own copy of the deck, start connecting with this beautiful artwork. I'm showing it one more time just so that people can see. Oh, there's Archangel Michael. Hello.
The very
Oh my
first
gosh.
one.
The very first one. And then Archangel Raphael. Oh my gosh. Okay, last one. I could just show this beautiful art all day long. So all of that is there. Um, is there anything else, Nina, that you want to share before we end today?
Anything I want to share? Always something that I always love to say is no matter whether you want to be creative or just make a positive mark in the world, the more we connect to who we truly are, and with especially with nature, like I'm so big on nature at the moment. Again, during the card creation process, I developed like an even deeper relationship with Gaia, and I felt the deeper I went with her, and like the more I was fusing my energy with the energy of the earth, the deeper I got rooted, and the higher I could then go spiritually or like cosmically in
Mm.
my spiritual work. So no matter whether you want to be creative or help people, work as a coach, like anything that you want to do, I feel this deep Gaia connection is just going to be so supportive of everything that we're going to be creating in all sorts of ways in this world. And as we are entering these new ages, I think it's so exciting, and that's always something that I want to give people on their way if they're asking, because that's helped me so much. So that's always something that I love to share. And of course then the deep connection with the angels, the archangels, so much gratitude to them, because it was just absolutely special working with this card deck, with the messages, with everything that you channeled, Cristina. That in and of itself was just so beautiful and so profound to just base my work off of. Yeah, so thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to collaborate and to hopefully give people something that is very special and unique in the way that we've done it in our ways. And just, as a tool for people. There are so many beautiful tools out there, but it's just been very, very beautiful to have the opportunity to collaborate with you on this. And yeah, just wishing everyone such a deep connections with the archangels and with your beautiful energy. Thank you so much again.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. That was the most beautiful way to end this episode. Like on that mic drop moment. Thank you for that wisdom and that guidance and that reminder for us in terms of that connection, in terms of the divine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on here today. I just have so much love for you, so much appreciation for you. And I'm so excited to just see how our journey is continuing to unfold. So thank you again for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. Like I said, go follow Nina, go check her out. All the links are in the show notes below this podcast episode. And yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to hear what people say. Leave your comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Let us know what was the biggest thing that stood out to you, or what was the biggest, like, whoa, that's so cool moment listening to Nina share about her process with the art. So thank you again. As always, I and we are sending so much love and angel blessings to all of you. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you once again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And if you want to learn more about the Divine Connection podcast, you can go to CristinaAroche.com/podcast and learn about how you can be featured on the show.